And we are so happy that you are here, honored guests, guests and friends, members, students, our panel moderator. Everyone is in the house. A little shout out to my husband also, who is here, and I was not expecting him to be here, so thank you very much, John Hirsch. We are also live right now on Facebook. You can see it later as well if you go on Facebook. If you missed something here and you want to rewind and go back and listen to it, I guess you don't rewind on Facebook. Also, eventually, this will be on our LWVOC YouTube channel as well as our website. Also, if you haven't done so already, if you would please silence all your phones. And also, this is unscripted, but I have a quick PSA for everyone who is intrigued by celestial phenomena. Perhaps on your social media, you saw all those pictures of the Aurora Borealis and the Northern Lights, and tonight is supposed to be the best night to see them in Central Florida. I saw a picture from Winter Springs and a picture from St. Augustine, and it was pretty cool. So, oh, well, take a nap and then set your alarm. I only know, go to WESH 2 because that's where I saw it. But we neither endorse nor oppose any television station here. As we honored yesterday with those who served in the military on Veterans Day, here now, all together, we too would like to honor all of those who are serving or have served. If you have served or are currently in service in the U.S. military, please stand. We'd like to honor you and give you our appreciation. We thank you, and we are so grateful for how you protected all of our families. And today we're honored to have with us the Color Guard presented by the Guardsmen of the American Legion Post 286, led by Captain Anthony Cruz. Would you please stand? If you would like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Forward, arms! Drive, face! Forward, march!
Thank you, Captain Cruz and the Guardsmen, for joining us here today for the Color Guard. Thank you all. For those of you who currently hold office or are running for office, we invite you to join Gina at the mic and introduce yourselves and who and where you represent. An audience, because we neither endorse nor oppose any candidate, thanks for holding your applause until everyone has introduced themselves.
Welcome to Winter Park, Mayor Sheila DeCiccio. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Kelly Martinez-Sumrud, Orange County District 5 Commissioner.
Orange County Commissioner Nicole Wilson from beautiful District 1.
My name is Elizabeth Ingram, and I'm running for Winter Park City Commissioner for seat 1.
Judy Garabo Hayes. I'm running for Orange County Court Judge in Group 21.
Good morning. My name is Chelsea Simmons, and I'm running for Orange County Judge, Group 19.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Ziegler, and I'm running for Orange County Commissioner, District 3.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Lewis, and I am running for Orange County Commissioner for District 7.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Jane Amon, and I'm running for Florida House District 37.
Good morning. Glad to see everybody. My name is Phil Diamond, and I am serving as the Orange County Comptroller.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Murphy, and I'm running for Orange County Mayor.
Good morning. Myra Uribe, Orange County Commissioner, District 3, candidate for Orange County Mayor. Thank you.
Good morning. State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith, Florida Senate District 17.
Good morning. I'm Ann Copenhaver, Board of Supervisors, Urban Orlando Community Development District, and huge supporter of the senator who has introduced the National Popular Vote Bill, Senate Bill 232, for us at Floridians. Thank you, Senator Smith.
This is Mira Tana, running for Orlando City Council District 3.
And this is Roger Chapin, and we also running for Orlando City Council District 3.
And there's an election on
December 9th. Please come out to vote if you are in District 3 in the City of Orlando. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Well done. That is the spirit in which we like to reside. We want to acknowledge all of our sponsors and thank them for how faithfully and generously that they support Hot Topics. Our bronze sponsor, thank you, Cynthia McKinnon. Our silver sponsors, the Kindred Three, Joan Irwin, Sue Foreman, Lee Rambo Kemp. Thank you, ladies. Other silver sponsors include Lynn and David Barrelsman, Voting Voices Michelle Levy, Laura and Rick Wack, Charlie Williams, and Caroline Emmons Schramm. Thank you, folks. Our visionary sponsors are Jennifer and Phil Anderson. Thank you, Andersons. And, oh, yep. I would like the sponsors actually to stand up so that we can appropriately thank them. Whew, we live in some wild times, do we not? And in a time and place when we can be so divided, it is great for us to at least be able to agree on a few things. If we were to make a wish list for Central Florida, for the places where we live, we might agree that these might be some pretty basic things that we would want. A safe community with adequate numbers of police and emergency responders. A strong economy with multiple opportunities for employment and advancement. Perhaps an affordable housing market where people working 2 jobs aren't priced out of the market. A vibrant arts culture to entertain us and give depth and dimension to our lives. And surely we can all agree that we would love to have improved transportation systems and less time waiting in traffic. Well, all these things, oddly enough, have one thing in common. They all require money. So today we want to focus on a possible source of funding for this wish list: tourism taxes. Our moderator today is LaToya Dennis. She is the news director and Managing Editor for Central Florida Public Media. Ms. Dennis has been there since 2021 and is an award-winning reporter and editor who leads a newsroom of 9 journalists dedicated to trustworthy, independent local journalism. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here for this very important discussion. You know, the conversation over tourism development taxes, usually called TDT, is one that seems to be never ending, and I suppose that's for very good reason. It's a complicated subject with a lot of interest and honestly a whole lot of money involved. Now, because I said it's complicated, I want to ground us so that we're on the same page, and I want to talk a little bit about what TDT is before we jump into this discussion. It's a 6% tax on lodging, like hotels and short-term vacation rentals. The bed tax is paid by tourists, not by local residents. And last fiscal year, Orange County brought in a record-breaking $384.6 million from TDT, and that number is only expected to grow. Use of this large pool of money is limited by law, and in recent years, there's been a lot of discussion around changing laws to allow some of that money to be used on things like affordable housing and transportation, to maybe overhaul the bus system and alleviate commutes to work for people who can take up to 2 hours one way. And I have to tell you, that's if things go as planned. And as the state transitions more of the cost of Sunrail over to counties that are also facing growing pressure to make the service more useful by adding night and weekend routes, there are questions about where that money comes from. Some have suggested TDT. Shameless plug here, but these are topics that we recently explored at Central Florida Public Media with our flagship series, Central Florida Seen and Heard Costly Commutes. If you have not heard it, go check it out. I think that it'll help shed light on some of these issues and these conversations that we're talking about today. I'm now going to introduce our 3 panelists for this discussion. First up, we're going to have Jane Healy, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, formerly of the Orlando Sentinel, and former co-chair of the Orange County Citizens Advisory Task Force on the TDT. Next up, we have Frank Santos, CEO of Rosen Hotels and Resorts. And finally, we have State Senator Carlos Guillermo-Smith, a Democrat who represents Central Florida. Panelists, please note that when it comes to your rebuttals that you will have a 30-second time limit on those. And for league members, keep your questions in mind because as you know how this format goes, at the end there'll be a time allotted for a short Q&A. We're going to first start, and I'm going to toss it to each of you, but we're going to start with Jane. And we each have 3 minutes on this first question. Please give us, Jane, we'll start with you. And since you were co-chair of the Citizen Advisory Task Force on TDT, what were the task force main recommendations from a couple of years ago? And have any of them actually been implemented?
Well, let me start from the beginning. I was covered the TDT from 1978 when I was a reporter at the Sentinel covering Orange County Commission. And up until then, the hotel and tourism industry was really against any sort of hotel tax. And in 1978, what happened is Hyatt Brown from Daytona Beach was Speaker of the House. He wanted a convention center in Daytona Beach, and this is how things often happen in Tallahassee. So he proposed, which we called then the resort tax, this 2% tax on hotels. And Orange County then embraced it, but with very narrow uses. And then it was a 2% tax for $2.4 million a year. And really the tourism industry just wanted it for convention center and promotion. But George Stewart, who was our state senator then in Orlando wanted to attract an NBA team. And so they wanted an arena. And so it was made a priority that you could also use this money for sports and cultural events. So that's when it all, and actually there had to be a vote on this, and it was approved by 64% of the voters, even though this was very conservative community then and never approved taxes. But this was taxing someone else. Okay, so this is 2.4 million in 1978. Fast forward to 2023, and now it's at 6 cents, and it is raising 360 million a year. And so the county realized it had some extra money to spend. So Mayor Deming started a task force and asked me to be a co-chair of the task force, which I was happy to do. I was retired and no conflict with the Sentinel, and wanted to get back into it. So I started looking at it and realized in all those years, it still was the same uses. It was but since that time, we've had multiple convention center expansions. We've had 2 arenas. We've had Performing Arts Center and over $1 billion, I'm sure, in promotions. And so I saw that we had too much money for too few uses, basically. And the county, and also other counties were able to get other uses. But the tourism lobby always just eliminated Orange County by saying only in counties that are under $1 million and on the coast. So there's only one county that was over $1 million and not on the coast. It was Orange County. So we never had any expansion. So I'll get into it later, but I pushed a tax then that the Keys has had for years for 1 penny for affordable housing, which was recommended by the task force, and the county commission has actually recommended it, but we'll see what happens. So that's my background on TDT.
Thank you. Frank, we are coming to you. What is your proposal, and what prompted you to come forward with it? And why do you think it's the best one?
Great. Well, the best one, I don't know of any other, but we'll get to that a little bit later. That will address transportation. My proposal is called a TTT, Tourist Transportation Tax. I travel a lot, and when I book my hotel room, I never quiz the reservation agent how much am I going to pay in tax. I know that I'm going to pay the applicable tax for that community, for that city. And I did some research going back to 2019, and I found that Orange County has one of the lowest tax basis on hotel rooms. And I made an argument that we could create a new funding source. I called it a tax. I really probably would like to rather call it a surcharge. And there are some communities here in Florida who are addressing their TDT, not as a tax, but as a surcharge. Scott Maxwell pointed out in his September 24th article in support of my proposal that the total tax paid by a visitor in a hotel in Orange County is 12.5%. That's the 6% TDT and 6% TDT and then 6.5% in sales tax. He indicated in his article, and I didn't realize this during my research, that we rank 115th in the country, meaning that 114 communities in the U.S. have tax rates higher than Central Florida. And that study is readily available online. I determined that Chicago, Anaheim, and Austin charge 17%. New Orleans is 16.75%. Nashville, 16%. Los Angeles and Dallas, 15%. The U.S. average on hotels is 15%. My proposal could increase the opportunity to improve Sunrail, links, more funding for links, and connect Sunrail to the airport. We need our employees to get to work faster. My employees take up to 2 hours, as LaToya had said, and I was looking for an opportunity to help fund transportation. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, Carlos, you might have something to say about whether there's another proposal out there. I'm not sure. But you've been working on this issue for a couple of years now. What do you think is the best solution for Orange County?
Thank you for the question, and thank you again to the Orange County League of Women Voters for convening what I think is the hottest topic of all, how to use our tourist development taxes. So first, I just want to level set with everyone and recap some of what we've heard, which is that every year in Orange County, we raise about $360 million just in Orange off of this hotel tax. And because of how restrictive our state laws are, 90 cents out of every dollar of those millions, hundreds of millions of dollars we receive, 90 cents out of every dollar are spent on one of three things: corporate advertising at Visit Orlando, or the convention center and the expansion of what is already the largest complex of its type on the planet, and third, on one of the many venues that we have in Orange County. Part of the reason that is the case is because we are not allowed to spend tourist development taxes on things like mass transit. We sought to change that this last year. We introduced legislation to allow for the use of tourist development taxes on tourism-related mass transit. We introduced legislation separately from that to also allow for the use of hotel taxes to fund workforce housing, which is for our tourism workers, to fund our public safety needs as well related to tourism, because we know that tourism is a huge economic driver in our region. Yes, we acknowledge that, we celebrate it, but we also have to acknowledge that tourism puts a large strain on our resources in our community. When tourists come here, they use our water, they flush our toilets, they drive on our roads, and yes, oftentimes they commit crimes while they are here. And I fundamentally believe that the restricted current use of TDT is something that honestly needs to change. So we've introduced this legislation, we've reintroduced it this year because we know during a time where more than 62% of families here in Orange County are cost burdened, particularly on things like housing affordability. To me, it's unconscionable that we spend $105 million a year not on community needs to support the homeless, for transit, but $105 million a year on corporate advertising at Visit Orlando with public monies. So we're going to continue to advocate for the reform of the use of tourist development taxes and make sure that the money that is being spent at places like Visit Orlando, because they are our public dollars, are being spent efficiently.
Now, I have to ask, someone up here mentioned earlier that there have been carve-outs on how this money is used that have been made for other places, but Orange has been excluded. Who can speak more to that? Go for it.
Can you hear now? Okay.
Yes.
The tourism lobby in Tallahassee is really, really strong. I mean, it's it's Disney lobbyists up there, and they don't want that money touched for any other use, because the tourism industry people are telling their lobbyists, we don't want this opened up to anywhere else. Or there's been, like I mentioned, in the 80s, the Keys were able to get a tourism impact tax just for affordable housing. And the carve out there was only counties with areas of critical environmental concern. Well, there's 4 counties that have that in the whole state. And so nobody else was able to use that tax. And in fact, really got down to just, Monroe County was able to use it because that's the Keys, because their entire county is area critical concern. But the rest of them were like the Green Swamp and stuff, which you're not going to be building affordable housing in there anyway. But anyway, the Keys had had that since the 80s, and no one seemed aware of that. And when I was researching as co-chair of the task force, I discovered it and pushed it on our committee, because it would be separate from the first 6 cents. It's different tax, 1% on hotels. And the task force actually approved it with strong, strong opposition from the hotel people in the task force. And they never gave a reason why. They just ran after it. But It got recommended anyway, was recommended to the county commission. For the first time ever, the county commission recommended to the legislature a different use. And Carlos might want to talk about what's happened since then, because it gets so complicated in the legislature. But it's all been Disney, tourism officials, just not wanting any other use. They wanted all that for themselves, all that money for themselves. And again, it's too few uses for too much money. But I hope this tax for affordable housing gets through, because they've had several projects in the Keys that it's for land. In Orange County, it would be $30 million a year just for land for affordable housing. That's a lot every year.
And I'll just add to the question of why is Orange County treated differently. It's because of the strength of the tourism lobby. So just to give you an idea, outside of Orange County, even though we are #1 in the state for our collection of tourism development tax dollars, so frankly the conversation should start here, and the legislature should be listening to what Orange County leaders are saying, because we receive more tourism development taxes than any other county, and it's by far, remember, $360 million just in Orange County last year in TDT. Even the closest runner-up, second place, was Miami-Dade County with $174 million, and Broward County with $120 million in third place. So this is where the conversation should be happening. But the strength of the tourism community, or the tourism lobby here, has meant that even when other counties were allowed to begin diversifying hotel taxes to do things like beach restoration, which was allowed in Brevard County. Down in Monroe County in the Florida Keys, they were allowed to use a surplus on housing affordability and workforce housing using their TDT dollars. Even this last legislative session, although our proposal to allow tourism development taxes to be used on transit finally almost made it over the finish line, it was included in the Senate tax package, which, by the way, was written by the majority party, which I am not a part of, because I was able to persuade my Republican colleagues that the efficient use of TDT is a priority for those who are fiscally conservative. What we also saw actually at the end of session was not my bill getting passed. It was the addition of one expanded use of TDT to use hotel taxes to pay for lifeguards. Folks, we've got to get a lot more serious about modernizing TDT taxes to do more than just pay for lifeguards. We need it for housing, we need it for transit, we need it for destination infrastructure, because I fundamentally believe we cannot realize our full potential as a tourism region unless we have these things that tourists expect from Central Florida when they come and visit here.
Now, I want to come to you, Frank, because I'm sure you have some thoughts on this. Do we spend too much money on tourism?
We attract 75 million visitors to Central Florida, and all of the numbers that the senator has quoted, he needs to realize that it's expensive to do marketing and sales around the world. And so I think relatively the senator doesn't have that in perspective. There are issues and other needs that we have for the 6 cents in Central Florida. We understand that the convention center is the cash cow, which generates millions of dollars in economic benefit. The senator was incorrect. We are not the largest convention center. There are actually 2 in the U.S. that are bigger than Central Florida, and we need to continue to compete with those large convention centers, and we have plans to do such that. We need to finish the master plan for the convention center so that we can continue to attract conventions and business into Central Florida. I'm a proponent of not changing the uses of the tax. My plan is to add additional capacity where there is capacity and charge our visitors, not our residents, for paying for those services that we need that the senator and I agreed to.
And I'd like to add as well, I think it's really important to the question of do we spend too much on tourism marketing? In my opinion, yes. I think $105 million in public money to visit Orlando is an insane amount of public dollars to give when we have so many community challenges. However, for those who believe otherwise and disagree with my position, we have introduced an important reform last year. We've reintroduced it today. It's Senate Bill 446, and it does this simply. It requires that for all public dollars that are invested in destination marketing organizations such as Visit Orlando, that those public dollars must be matched with private contributions from the industry. Let me tell you where I got this crazy idea. Actually, Florida statutes require that for every dollar we spend of public money to fund Visit Florida, the statewide direct marketing organization that promotes tourism to our state, each of those public dollars has to be matched with a private contribution. Last year, the Florida legislature appropriated $80 million in public money to Visit Florida. And the CEO of Visit Florida was required to go get the tourism industry to donate $80 million for her to fully leverage those public funds. My question is, if this tourism marketing is so valuable that we need to spend $105 million to do it, why is it that the tourism industry won't invest in these dollars themselves? They want us to pay for it. And I think we should be requiring that they make an investment in the budget at Visit Orlando, for example, which, by the way, only 5% of Visit Orlando's budget is private dollars. The rest is public money. I think that's wrong.
Frank?
I think the senator should know that part of that private funding at Visit Florida also comes through Orlando Tourist Development Tax. It's not truly private. It's part of those public dollars that you're referring to that is going to make that match in Visit Florida. So that distinction, I think, is very important.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of different ways that we can define what the private match is, but the point that I'm making for our community today is that if $105 million a year as the budget for Visit Orlando really is the right amount, we need tourism to invest in some of those dollars themselves.
And the senator doesn't really understand the cost of doing business as a hotelier and a hospitality company. At Rosen Hotels, and we're much smaller certainly than the entire Orange County community, we spend $40 million a year in sales and marketing compared to the $100 million that Visit Orlando is funding. So and in addition to that, when we go back in time, and there's a lot of comparison to what Visit Orlando might have received 10 years ago, coming out of COVID, I think everyone understands that the cost of doing business has escalated to very high levels, inclusive of marketing. Most of our marketing expenses at Rosen Hotels have increased 20 to 40% after COVID. So, and that's just a part of doing business.
So I'm going to jump in here. And so, Frank, I want to ask you, so your proposal focuses on creating a separate tax, like you wouldn't touch TDT dollars whatsoever for transportation. There have also been calls to look at affordable housing. Why focus solely on transportation?
I agree that affordable housing is an issue and a challenge for Central Florida. I appreciate that in the new budget for Orange County, there is more money being allocated for homelessness and for affordable housing. I understand that the Orange County budget increased $1 billion between last year and this year, and I think there are many resources to help affordable housing in addition to homelessness.
Thank you. Now, Senator Carlos, you almost made it. You said last year your proposal almost made it to the finish line. What happened?
So while I was successful in persuading my Republican colleagues to include one of our TDT reforms in the Senate tax package, it was ultimately removed from the negotiated tax package between the House and Senate on the last day of negotiations. And for those of you who have gone to Tallahassee before, you're involved in advocacy work, you also know that it really takes several years to get an idea passed into law. You introduce a bill, it takes forever to educate people on the issue. This is the first year that a bill like this was introduced in the Florida legislature. And the fact that it almost made it across the finish line, I think, is a testament to the growing bipartisan support behind reform. And I also just want to point out that the need to use TDT to support things like mass transit, these are things that are tourism related. The idea that folks being able to use links, for example, to get to work, these are tourism workers that are driving the tourism-based economy. This is something that is part of the destination infrastructure that we need. A few years ago, you probably saw the op-ed that was written in the Orlando Sentinel by Scott Maxwell, where he correctly pointed out that although Visit Orlando that year received $96 million in TDT funds for corporate marketing, the Lynx bus system received only $54 million. The idea that we spend more on advertising than we actually do on transit here in Central Florida is a problem that we're seeking to change.
Frank?
I'll quickly mention your analysis on links. I think the misinformation is that only Orange County is supporting links. But the links budget this year at $208 million was supported by $90 million of Orange County. So they keep comparing the funding from Orange County compared to Visit Orlando. But keep in mind that Orange, Osceola, Seminole, City of Orlando, federal and state grants is also funding links. Links certainly needs a lot of help, and I look forward to my meeting that I'm having with the executive director next week to talk about the needs of links. My suggestion is that links has been underfunded. Has nothing to do with the amount of money that Visit Orlando is receiving. The elected leaders need to address that issue and fix it. They need to add more bus routes. They need to increase the scheduling for links so that, in my opinion, is one major improvement that can be made for transportation here in Orlando and Central Florida.
Jane?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add is that the reason I push this tourist impact tax that the Keys has for affordable housing in my task force is that it's separate from the first 6 cents in Orlando. And just politically, I know there's too few uses for too much money for the first 6 cents, but this would not have been competing with this money. And politically, the problem is every major interest group in Orlando now, Orange County, is getting money from TDT. And try getting them to support it. I mean, Orlando does not want to give up another arena. They don't want to lose the magic. Performing Arts Center people do not want to, not be able to do an improvement to the Performing Arts Center. The arts people, they get a pittance from the TDT, but they don't want to give that up. You have sports, you have the cities, you have arts and tourism, all who want to protect this money. And I just don't think politically you're going to get any support here. I do think a separate penny, like I'm talking about and like Frank's talking about, that you just separate off 1 penny for affordable housing or 1 for transit. I think that politically that has a much better chance of getting passed, and it's still just a penny, but it still raises a ton of money here.
Carlos, is adding an additional tax the way to go, in your opinion?
So maybe I'll break news with this statement. So the question is about Frank's proposal to create a TTT, a transportation tourism tax, to be a dedicated funding source for public transit. I support this initiative. I think it's important for us to have a dedicated funding source for transit. But I am also, you're welcome. I'm in the yes and category here. I think we need a dedicated funding source for public transit, And we should demand that our current use of hotel taxes is being spent more efficiently and is expanded to be used for things even beyond public transit that are part of destination infrastructure here in Central Florida. Things like workforce housing, things like tourism-related public safety. See, we can have all of these nice things. It is not just one or the other. And Frank made a valid point before that Lynx, although I think we all agree is terribly and woefully underfunded, has multiple funding sources beyond just Orange County. I also want to point out that the hundreds of millions of dollars we invest in corporate advertising at Visit Orlando also has other funding sources. The giant corporations and theme parks themselves, which also have their own money to pay for marketing that should not be fully reliant on the public.
So I think we've all seen that when the legislature comes back into session, it seems as though the focus is going to be reducing property taxes, right? Is there the will there right now to give Orange County more taxing authority, more control over what it does with that money?
You said suggesting the current 6 cents, because we pretty much have control based upon what the state allows us to spend it on.
Right, so is there will there for the state to say, hey, Orange County, we're going to allow you to do
An additional tax or repurpose the 6?
Additional.
According to the consultants, and my initiative, which originated as just an opportunity for Orange County, has now gone statewide. And I know that we have support in Jacksonville, in Miami, based upon my consultant. So we have taken this statewide because we believe that not only can Orange County benefit, but there are many other transportation needs within the state. Jane's proposal of the 1% for affordable housing, I like that. Thank you for giving me some hope. We're friends. We're actually personal friends here. But so I think there's opportunity. I love collaboration. And one thing I'm told from people within the hospitality community is there's not much collaboration on this topic. It's the groups are not getting together to really talk in an open forum to try to come to a solution, and that's really where we need to go.
You have a proposal that you've put forth. Is there collaboration?
Well, yes, I'm overwhelmed with support from the community and for some of our elected officials who have asked me to continue down this path. So I appreciate that. The hospitality community, yes, I have support. I haven't spoken to the big players in town, but they have invited me in to come and talk about my proposal. I believe that there's more and more support for a separate tax funding. I think as long as we stay away from that 6 sacred cents, I think we have a lot of opportunity, as Jane has said.
What do you think? Is that will there?
It's hard to say. First, for Frank's proposal that I support, in addition to my proposals, we need someone to introduce it in the Florida legislature for it to be considered. I think a lot of folks who are very wise are probably waiting for us to have a new governor before they bring forward something serious in Florida. And they would be well advised. They would be well advised because FYI, he's totally unserious as a leader. So, but what he has been saying in a way that, I sometimes perk up when he talks about property taxes and occasionally tourism taxes, is he talks about how we have many community needs that have the potential to be funded by tourists rather than those who pay property taxes. I agree. I think that in part we can help fund things like mass transit by asking the tourists to pay for it rather than asking our local property owners to pay for it as well.
In addition to that, my proposal exempts Florida residents from this additional tax. And I did that because I felt that would be an easier sell to Tallahassee. No Florida resident, and that's the governor's motivation, no new taxes on Florida residents, where my proposal had some opportunity. But I believe that whatever we put out there, it's at least a 2-year conversation.
2 years, okay. That seems like a long time for people who are waiting, right,
Well,
for a fix.
I understand, but as Carlos, the senator, has said, Tallahassee will be a bottleneck for us, we believe, and I believe it as well. I'm willing to move forward. I have some elected leaders who are pushing me to move this into the next legislative session, and I have some possible sponsors for the bill.
Thank you. Now, I just have to ask you, Frank, because earlier you did mention a number of cities who have much higher taxes when it comes to this than we do here.
Yes.
How are they spending that money?
Well, 85% of them, based upon my AI research, actually, 85% of them have the same model that we have. Cities such as Dallas, Austin, Chicago, Nashville, all of their bed tax or tourist development tax, it's called different things around the country, is exclusively for tourism, creating new tourism, bringing new visitors into the state. Vegas is an anomaly to that program, where they also promote, they have a visitors bureau like we do here in Orlando, but they use it for promotion for their stadium, and they do use it for general funds. I couldn't find very many models in the U.S. where the funds were available for general funds for other than transportation within a district of tourism.
Thank you. So we're going.
I would just add very, very quickly. I know Frank knows because the tourism industry generally considers Las Vegas to be our top competitor as far as competing for tourists. Las Vegas uses their hotel taxes to pay for things like roads, we don't, parks, we don't, and schools, we don't. If our top competitor is doing this as well, I think that it's something that we should consider here in Central Florida.
Okay. So before we open questions up to you all, I have just one more for each of you. You have nearly 200 people in this room today, right? What do you want them to do on this issue?
This is our last opportunity to speak, yes?
Yes. Before we open it up.
Okay, well,
yes.
I'll make it quick. 51% of the sales tax collected in our community is paid by visitors. The top 10 taxpayers for real estate are hospitality-related entities, mainly hotels and theme parks. Our industry pays about $800 million per year in real estate taxes, which goes to pay for schools, both state and local, fire, EMS, even the library system. The $800 million did not include taxes on the theme parks, restaurants, or interval short-term owners. Voters struck down the 1% transportation sales initiative presented by Mayor Demings in 2022, which is all paid by the residents and visitors of Orlando and Orange County. Mayor Demings says now is the time to revisit that conversation on taxes to pay for infrastructure now. And it did not pass in 22, and I do not believe it'll pass in 26, but it is coming to us quickly. My proposal will take care of many of the issues that Mayor Demings has presented in his 2026 budget.
Jane?
Yeah, one thing, talking about Vegas using it for roads and education, and at the Senate, we would have never supported that in the early years because we looked at, you really can look at the arena and the Performing Arts Center and the stadium upgrades now, UCF, as really a gift to the community, that we were able to get these things that most communities have to have some bond issue for or a regular sales tax increase, but we were actually getting something back for the community. I think that's why George Stewart, pushed it. So from that tax, we got that so much money. I think at the Sentinel, our position was after 2003, when we had yet another arena and convention center expansions and forming arts centers. Okay, now the community's gotten a lot out of this. Now let's turn to maybe some other uses. But the problem with roads and transportation and education, they eat up so much money. I mean, the downtown intersection was $600 million. You would a new school is hundreds of millions. So the community never would have seen any of that money for the arena and all these other things that make Orlando a really nice place to live. I mean, the Performing Arts Center is one of the best in the country. The arena is. We have state-of-the-art things, but we never would have gotten them if we had given it to roads. I think Vegas may have a higher tax, right? Don't they, Carlos?
Tax rate?
Yeah, the tax rate.
It's about Vegas tax rate is about 1% greater than ours currently. They're about 13.5%.
I don't know how Vegas does it to use money
gambling?
for roads and transportation.
Gambling
and
taxes?
Gambling. Okay, it's gambling.
Carlos?
Well, and the thought that I would leave you with here is that there actually is hope on modernizing tourist development taxes. I see hope based on the fact that first, we were able to get together and have this lively discussion, the hottest topic of all, that the Orange County League of Women Voters actually prioritize this issue for their luncheon this month, and that we're seeing more and more candidates are running for public office, not just for the Florida legislature, but for county commission, who have hotel tax reform in mind, and they're winning. They're winning those races, because we're seeing that the vast majority of our constituents agree with us on this issue. I know in a few weeks the Board of County Commissioners is going to be reviewing the audit of Visit Orlando. The reason I focus so much on Visit Orlando is because they do receive $1 out of every $3 that we collect in tourism development taxes here. And when you see what they've been spending things on at Visit Orlando from the audit, you can see that there's probably a more efficient use of those dollars that can be made. And the board can change and shift some of the rules themselves. We can start relying on a independent analysis for how effective our dollars are being used at Visit Orlando, rather than just the industry and the agency's own analysis on how effective those dollars are. Dollars. My proposal is dollar for dollar, because I think the industry needs to have skin in the game for their tourism advertising budget. But let me propose this. If we were to just say that for every one private dollars, we could expand Sunrail service to nights and weekends in Central Florida, something that our constituents want, because we would save those public dollars to do
And with that, we're going to open it up for question and answer.
Good afternoon, everybody. So at this time, we have about 10 minutes for member questions. Remember, I'm going to hold the mic. They let me play with it every month, so I'm going to hold it. And we'll try to get through as many questions. Please keep your questions to one question, not a comment, not a follow-up, one question. And that's just to help more people get more questions. Barbara?
Thank you. I'm Barbara Lanning. I thought that members might be interested to know, in terms of the league's positions that we have taken, we have a general position. We are against preemption, and we are for local control. And we did a transportation study, our transportation committee. I think Charlie, who's in line here, worked on it or was a co-chair. And we determined that what was required to upgrade our system was a dedicated funding source. So that is where the league stands.
I'm waiting for the question.
So, my question is, if we are moved today by the arguments, who should we be talking to? Should we be talking to the state level, county level? Where should we be focusing our efforts?
Thank you for the question, Barbara. I would say talk to your state legislators first and tell them to co-sponsor Senate Bill 446, 454, 456, and 458 to, push all of these reforms that I've been advocating for.
My recommendation is that you talk to the local elected leaders, particularly at the Orange County Commission.
Dan?
Dan Helm, league member. My question is, what about the law as it is, right? So we've heard about proposals and the hope of the legislature is going to come help Orange County. I don't share that hope, but when I look at the law 125.0104 under authorized uses of revenue, particularly 5A6, it talks about using public funds for transportation, public facilities that have a lasting or 5 years, and so we can do it as long as we follow the steps under the current law.
Yes, and to be clear, public transit and transportation is listed in the statute as an allowable use with one gigantic caveat. The caveat is that first, before you spend TDT on transit, you have to give 40% of the total pot to Visit Orlando for tourism marketing, which I see as, frankly, a ransom. They currently receive 30% or so, which means for us to spend TDT on transit under current law, we would have to increase our funding to Visit Orlando to approximately $140 million in public money a year first.
But then we get transportation. Well, then we could spend it on transportation, right?
After we've squandered all of it over tourism marketing.
We get
sure.
60%, right?
LOL.
Kelly?
Thank you, everyone. This was very informative. So I am Dr. Kelly Sembrad, and I am a tourism professor at the University of Central Florida that specializes in tourism economies. And one of the things that I specialize in is adaptive tax reform all across the world. And I agree with Frank, and I support you wholeheartedly. I've already told him when I go to Tallahassee, I'm going up there with it. Carlos, I support you as well in your initiatives, particularly the matching part with Visit Orlando. But I also fall in a bucket of and some, because we have nothing on live entertainment fees. We have nothing on car rental fees. Miami gets to use a tax on food and beverage to help pay for homeless services. We are the leading world destination in tourist arrivals, yet we're lagging in terms of making public money off of those arrivals. So my question is, in July, when Governor DeSantis said we need to find a way to tax the people that don't live amongst us, meaning tourists, and I was like, OMG, I agree with DeSantis. This comes down to political will. This is what this is. It's political will. And any candidate that tries to run on a platform about diversification or reform gets attacked in millions of dollars of attack ads. So how do we get to the point where we agree, where we compromise, where we work together? How do we get there? Because it hasn't happened. And even though we're here and we're talking about it, there is fierce, aggressive protection over 6 cents. When we have a 156% increase in homelessness, 40% of them are children and seniors, a $58 million deficit in our roads just this year. Orange County is crumbling because the infrastructure is too expensive to keep up on. This is about political will, and how do we get there? Because otherwise we lose the 75 million tourists that visit us.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would say we need more voters and more constituents to be asking candidates running for office about this issue. Because the power of the tourism industry in political campaigns is real. Every time I've run for public office, the tourism industry has, as a condition of their support, has asked me and other candidates to sign a pledge to say, I promise to never allow for expanded use of tourism development taxes so that the tourism industry can use it for themselves. That is a real challenge because candidates from both parties feel like they need the tourism industry to win their elections, to not just receive their campaign contributions, but avoid being targets of spending on the other side. But we've got people power. We need more people talking about this issue, and I think that's how we can really change it.
Commissioner, you mentioned many issues that we have in Central Florida and around the state. My question to you is, why is that to be paid for by tourists?
So moving into this next legislative cycle, we're going to look at property tax reform of some sort, and it's going to gut our local municipalities, our county budgets. And so when we get people who are arriving here that do not live amongst us, we have to find a way to fully fund our police. We have to find a way so that our corrections officers don't have a 25% vacancy rate because the pay is so low. And when we have a shadow population of approximately 200,000 people living amongst us daily, we must learn to make money off of them for the public good.
And when you look at tourism, do you look at all of the other taxes and opportunities that they bring to Central Florida, such as I mentioned, the $800 million paid in real estate property taxes?
Agreed. They bring, I'm not saying that tourism is not, I'm pro-tourism. They bring huge impact. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if we're going to lead the world in tourist arrivals, we need to lead the world in terms of making tourism a public asset to benefit our communities here, our workers, our more business profit. People don't want to come to a destination where you sit in hour traffic jams and see homeless people struggling on the roads. They don't want to see that on a vacation. So we must get to a point where we learn how to make money off of the people who are coming to us. Additionally, I know that you said you wanted to alleviate visitors, Floridians, but there is such a thing as visitor taxes as well, and we don't count those visitors. When people come to visit us from St. Augustine, the only thing we get off of them is a direct economic impact. We need to learn to make indirect economic impacts off of them, taxes off of them. We have to learn to tax, otherwise we're going to be looking at a county that is a hollow shell of services that cannot be funded.
I agree with you. One question, the model that you and I have discussed recently in Miami-Dade, where they added 1% tax to all restaurant checks, has reduced homeless by 40% in many major areas in Miami. Those are the role and the opportunities that we should be addressing as well.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you. Charlie? I mean, good discussion, but...
Thank you, Gina. One simple question that I think everyone on the panel and the audience could agree with is, when is Orlando going to shift and become a first-tier city? Because you can't be a first-tier city in people's minds unless you check all the boxes, transportation, transit being one. We have the largest transportation system in the country in links without a dedicated funding source. You can't do planning in the long run without that long-term vision and without that source. That's got to change. Some of you will remember us bidding on World Cup in '94, the largest sporting event this country has ever hosted. Joni, where are you in the audience? In the back. We were lucky we got World Cup because at the time we had no real transit infrastructure. You land at our airport and what do? So I would ask that we work on that as a common goal. Vegas, all of our other convention center competitors are top tier. We're not there yet. We can get there, but let's work together.
Was there a question, Charlie? When are we going to get there?
Any comments?
Let's do it.
Thank you for the question.
Hi there. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. So, Mr. Santos and anyone on the panel can answer this for me, but you mentioned $800 million in property taxes, and earlier you talked about 10 entities paying the most property or the largest property taxes. So can you give us an idea of what the corporate profits are, the executive pay, and the dividends paid to shareholders of those 10 companies?
I'll take that as a no. We'll move on. Okay.
I don't.
No
It's
disrespect.
not relative to my proposal.
No disrespect. Last question. I get to hold it.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm like getting ready to do my karaoke here. Thank you so much. First of all, this is all music to my ears. And I know it feels a little bit like a debate, I think, to the public, but I want everyone here to know that as a county commissioner, I feel pretty strongly that our county right now has a leak in the basement and the roof. And so it's okay to have more than one approach. And that the educational piece of this, which is our revenue sources versus our needs, is such a critical part of the conversation. And yes, our tourists do flush their toilets. We do have a certain amount of landfill space that when it's gone, it's gone.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, so my question was actually about the area of special impact that was required in order for us to be able to qualify for the existing legislation that Monroe County was able to achieve. We have Shingle Creek here. We do have areas of what I would believe are connectivity environmentally that would be considered critical on any number of ecological measures. But for some reason, that conversation never got anywhere. And I was wondering if there is an opportunity to declare Shingle Creek something that would give us that special status.
Thank you, Commissioner. So basically the question is the way that Florida statute is written is without naming counties, it determined that there were some counties in Florida that were of critical need that would be eligible for additional tourism development tax use, and Orange County is currently left out of that definition. I think it is something that we're willing to explore to see if we can tweak the definition so that we can tap into those funds for additional uses there.
Thank you. LaToya, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you. I want to thank our panelists today, Jane, Frank, and Carlos, for such an engaging conversation. And thank you all. I'm going to hand it back over to the league.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to LaToya Dennis and to all of our panelists for helping us better understand the basics of the tourism tax and the opportunities we have to consider how we best want to use that. I'll invite you to head back to your seats. I have some announcements for the good of the order. Can we give them one more round of applause? I do want to say that both on the panel and in our earlier introductions, I was so happy to see civility modeled. So I thank you all for that too. We can have lively debates without being unpleasant. So we have some calls to action. They are the usual. People are asking, what should we be doing? And the answer is all the things. So call and email your legislators often. They love to hear from you. Read and share our weekly newsletters. That's your best source of information. Follow our social media. When you share and like and comment, it helps it go further. Support our efforts as a nonprofit organization and volunteer by going to the website and looking at the many opportunities. Our voter services team is on fire with activity right now, especially with our young people. So please check that out. On your table, you'll find a flyer that talks about our toy drive that we're having that benefits Hope Community Center. We often do that at our holiday party. This year, our holiday party is a little too late for that to be as effective as we would like. So please you can scan these, you can make direct donations if you'd like. Let's see what else we have here. There are, please, on Saturday, we have an event for members. It is creating an Orange County pro voter agenda. And so we would love to have your input and perspective on how Orange County could be a model of excellence in terms of the voter experience. So do us a favor, if you can make it, please go to the website and register. If you have trouble with that, email me, president@lwvoc.org. Our DEIA, Social Justice Book Club, continues. They have a meeting on the 10th December 10th at 7 p.m. They are reading, I love getting their book recommendations, Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women the White Feminists Forgot, by Mickey Kendall. Sounds intriguing. And then we have our annual Shop and Sip, which is Thursday, December 11th. It's a Thursday, so the parking will be easier. You can go to Tooney's, our newest Sip and Shop participant. It is trendy and chic. Perfect dress for an evening out. Update your closet. Fashion forward, elevate everyday wear. You can go to Writer's Block Bookstore, our own independent store with 2 floors, great for books for kids, stocking stuffers, and getting lost in a good read. There's Jay McCaughlin, Timeless Tailored Classic meets modern style, sparkle from head to toe. Scott Laurent, art pieces, sleek home accents, and transform any space. Lots of things to choose from. And, of course, 10,000 Villages, a pioneer in fair trade items from around the world, handcrafted jewelry, global scarves, candles, woven baskets, wall hanging smocks, and more, and ethical shopping to boot. So please check that out. You'll see all your friends as you're out there. Bring a friend too. There is no, the last event I want to announce is that our league holiday party is December 17th at 6 o'clock p.m. It's at the Women's Club of Winter Park. If you would be so kind as to consider putting it on your calendar and actually registering in advance, the events team would greatly appreciate your consideration. It does really help in the planning, and we'd love to see you there. There is no Hot Topics overtime today, and there is no Hot Topics in December because we have a holiday party. Did I mention the holiday party? Register for that. Okay, in January, Hot Topics will be back, January 14th, and we will be having a discussion about First Amendment freedoms. So please complete our event survey. We value your feedback. We are an organization that values learning and improvement, and we want to hear from you. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks for being here.